Just a few moments ago, Randy Adams, the executive director for the Northwest Baptist Convention, made a press release announcement about the U.S. Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals and an amicus brief that's being filed to try to counteract some of the deception that NAMB has put forth in recent court documents. So he joins me right now. I want to ask him to join in with me. And Randy, I'm glad to have you here. And I want to ask you, if you will, to please fill us in on exactly what this is and why is this necessary, and give us just a little bit more context.
Sure. Well, some might remember that several years ago, Will McRaney, who is the executive director of the Maryland-Delaware Convention, filed a lawsuit against NAMB for defamation and tortious interference in his employment, not only while he was in Maryland, but after he left Maryland, alleging that they interfered with his ability to find employment and to seek employment. In order to avoid a court trial, NAMB has filed a number of appeals trying to get the case thrown out so that evidence doesn't come forth in a court trial. That's been going on for several years. In fact, this case has already gone to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals once. It went all the way to the Supreme Court, back to district court. Now it's going back to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. So McRaney is appealing this time at the Fifth Circuit, asking for a trial so that the facts could be heard and a judgment could be rendered either by a judge or a jury.
Now, when it was taken back to the Northern District Court, which is in Mississippi, and it went before the court there, it was supposed to go to trial, and I know many people were aware of that. And only a few days before it went to trial, the judge that was there over that court made a bench ruling, I believe is what it's called, at that point, and he made a decision. And in reading that decision, you correct me if I'm wrong, but in my reading of that decision, it looked like much of the language that he used in his decision came right from the court documents that had been submitted by the North American Mission Board, which were quite misleading in their phraseology and their approach and kind of anti-Southern Baptist polity. Is that a fair statement?
Correct. In fact, the judge ruled that he could not intervene in the midst of a church dispute, a dispute in the Baptist church, as though McRaney and NAMB and we're all part of the same church, sort of like if we were Roman Catholics that are hierarchical or United Methodists. So he really got our polity wrong as Baptists. But one reason he got the polity wrong, we believe, is because of the method in which NAMB is argued. There was an infamous brief in this process given by the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission in consultation with NAMB, I might add. That was learned in discovery, in which the ERLC told the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals the last time it was there that Southern Baptists are a hierarchy and that the governing authority at the top of the hierarchy is the SBC, that they have authority over all churches, conventions, and associations. Of course, every Baptist knows that's not true. The Fifth Circuit, however, may not, or at least some of the members known that was not true, and they narrowly ruled in McRaney's favor, even with that deception of the court. It wasn't learned that the amicus brief that the ERLC submitted was wrong in that regard until after the Fifth Circuit had ruled. It was kind of learned by accident afterwards. We didn't know about the amicus brief. So because of that, and NAMB's argument that they have absolute rights and privileges to defame if they choose. They say they didn't defame McRaney, but they said they could. They also said they could interfere in the work of a state convention, in this case, Maryland, Delaware, in order to protect their interests, their financial interests, and perhaps other interests, without legal impunity. So they could interfere, they could defame. And their argument is nothing can be done about it because we're all Baptists, we're all sort of part of the same big group. And therefore, a judge cannot render a verdict on that or a decision on that. So they're claiming First Amendment privileges.
Yeah, and what I want to do is I want to kind of cut to the chase, because we could spend a lot of time recounting all these things that have been done, and things like NAMB's representation of the Baptist Church, calling themselves the Mission Board, the SBC Board, that kind of thing. So there's a lot of things they've done that have been very deceptive in that sense. But bring us up to where we are now with this amicus brief brief. Why are we filing an amicus brief? Well, it's not really everybody at this point. You've taken the lead in this and explained basically why. And then we have a couple of quotes that are from an authority on Baptist history, and lead into that as you're ready. And then also tell us how we can be a part of this.
Okay, we're filing an amicus brief because so far the amicus briefs that have been filed have been on behalf of NAMB, and they have argued incorrectly Baptist polity. And these are briefs filed by Southern Baptist Convention people, the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission. So we feel the record needs to be challenged, and the record needs to be set clean and clear as to who Baptists are. I actually asked and wrote a letter. Several state execs signed the letter asking the executive committee of the SBC to write an amicus brief from the executive committee in order to set the record straight as to Baptist polity. Thus far, there's no indication they're going to do that. So I thought that I should do it and lead the effort in involving state convention leaders, associational church leaders, national, state level, local church leaders from across the country. We'll have dozens and dozens, I do believe, who are going to sign on to this amicus brief. Basically, we're going to challenge and set clear the record that Baptist churches, associations, and conventions are autonomous, independent, and we have no ruling authority from any outside group, whether it be North American Mission Board or a seminary or another church across town that happens to affiliate or cooperate, I should say, with the SBC.
Yeah, in other words, Southern Baptists don't have the connectionalism that
Correct.
most denominations do. In fact, frequently we'll say, well, Southern Baptists aren't a denomination, that it's more a convention of churches that operate
Correct.
cooperating together. So let's go to this first quote that we have brought up, and this was in your press release that you put out, but share this with us and tell us a little bit more about this.
Yeah, Barry Hankins, Dr. Hankins said, he said this in a deposition. He submitted this as an expert in Baptist polity and history to the court. And it was not challenged, by the way, by the North American Mission Board. His statement was not challenged. But one quote from that statement is, if NAMB's interpretation of the First Amendment prevailed, every Baptist entity that cooperates in any way with the SBC would be put at risk. That's quite a statement from an expert in Baptist polity. And once again, NAMB did not challenge that statement, nor anything that he said. But and again, it's not whether or not McRaney's allegations are true. It's the method in which NAMB is arguing the case. That is what puts every Southern Baptist at risk. It's not whether or not McRaney's right. It's whether or not Baptist polity is being incorrectly stated by the North American Mission Board in their court filings.
Yeah, thus their argument about it being First Amendment. So before we jump to that part of the argument real quickly, tell us exactly how we can get involved. How can and who can a local pastor be involved? Who exactly can be involved at this point?
Yes, email me, radams@nwbaptist.org. Give me your name, your title, your place of service, maybe previous places of service. If you're an associational leader, state or national convention employee or leader, we need that title, and then I'll submit that to the judge or to the attorney who's preparing the brief, and she'll make sure there's no conflict of interest between you and her, and your name will be included in the brief. By the way, our attorney, her dad's a Baptist pastor. She's absolutely brilliant. She clerked for Justice Thomas. She's also worked for the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. She's very interested in our case because she understands Baptist polity is at stake. It's wrong what's been argued, and she wants to help us set the record straight as a Baptist attorney who is of such expertise that she worked for the Supreme Court.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that information you just gave, that is in the description of this video. So anyone who would like to contact you, they can reach out to that. So let's wrap it up with kind of what you have just said. Let's go back to the quote, or a second quote, relative to this First Amendment case that Dr. Hankins gave to us.
Right. Dr. Hankins wrote, "It is my opinion as a scholar of church-state relations in the United States that NAMB's First Amendment defense in this case, if accepted by the courts, would actually undermine religious liberty rather than strengthen it."
Or safeguard it. keep it safeguarded.
Or safeguard it. That's right. Or
Right.
safeguard it. Yeah, I don't have my glasses on. Rather
Yeah.
than safeguard it. So NAMB is claiming that religious liberty is at stake if this case goes to court. Dr. Hankins said their argument actually undermines religious liberty because it violates the religious liberty of Will McRaney or of any other pastor or church leader or convention leader that believed that they were interfered with or defamed by an outside organization. You know, there's no protection against a person in another church interfering with your church, or a person in an entity or a seminary or a state convention. There's no First Amendment protection for an outsider interfering with your church because your church is autonomous from all outsiders.
Right. So basically, it forms a connectionalism, which could be of danger, obviously, in a torturous situation like you're talking about in hiring or firing at that point, and control of other entities over, a local church or an association. But it also could have a great impact in the sexual abuse cases that we're seeing surface, other things of that sort, where a church that was being accused or sued for anything from sexual abuse to poor supervision of somebody falling down a stairway. It could be just about anything. And they could say, hey, look, all these churches are responsible because they're all connected. And they could file a suit listing all the churches in your association, a state convention, or all the way up to the national convention as well, because they're trying to form this connectionalism. And
Correct.
That would work if it were a denomination like Methodist or possibly Presbyterian, Catholic, those groups, that they are connected. There's a supervisory role, but Southern Baptists don't have that. We're all autonomous. Well, Randy, we're going to try to keep track of all this, and I know you'll keep us posted. The deadline, let's finish up with that. Tell us the deadline people need to get to you to let you know that they would like to sign on to this amicus brief, and then we'll wrap it up from there.
By 6 p.m. Eastern time on Monday. I have to have their information by then so I can get it to the attorney so she can get it in the brief. The brief will be filed the following day on Tuesday. That's the deadline. Has to be filed by Tuesday, November 7th.
Right. Okay. So need to get you the information by November 6th, which is
Correct.
Monday. November 7th, which is Tuesday, is when it has to be filed with the court.
Correct.
So that's what we need. All right. Well, look, Randy, I appreciate you taking a few minutes to get on this evening to kind of help announce this and let us know. Folks, if you're watching, if you'll share this video and pass it along to others that are interested, we'd like for them to be able to know as well exactly what's going on as well. So thank you again for joining us. We'll try to keep you posted as more things develop.